far away for beauty, truth, and miracles, not recognizing that they're here where we live, if we would only look. As the Hindu Upanishads say, you could have a golden treasure buried beneath your feet and walk over it again and again, yet never find it, because you don't realize it's there. Just so, all beings live every moment in the city of the divine, but never find the divine because it is hidden by the veil of illusion. And in the words of the Muslim mystic Abu Fazl, a person of high understanding and noble aspiration recognizes a ray of the divine power even in the smallest things of the world. Is there not everywhere the same enrapturing beauty which beams forth from so many thousand hidden places? Broad indeed is the carpet God has spread, and beautiful the colors God has given it. And finally, from the Gospel of Thomas, which didn't make it into the Bibles we have today, but was one of the Gospels that some Christians, early Christians, listened to. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus says, I am the light that is above them all. I am the all. Cleave a piece of wood, and I am there. Lift up the stone, and you will find me. If you don't mind, I'm going to put these back in here before they drive me crazy. Thank you. Today I want to talk to you about unobtrusive miracles, which is perhaps an oxymoron. I mean, miracle is supposed to be something that wows you. If it's unobtrusive, it doesn't have that wow factor. And yet, sometimes aren't the best miracles the ones we don't notice at first? The ones that kind of come in under the radar? The problem, I think, is that we tend to get excited by things we've never seen, like multiplying loaves and fishes or turning water into wine, when actually far more fantastic things happen every day. But because they are regular, we call them commonplace, as if that were a bad thing. The author Wendell Berry put it this way: the miraculous is not extraordinary, but the common mode of existence. It is our daily bread. Whoever really has considered the lilies of the field or the birds of the air and pondered the improbability of their existence in this warm world within the cold and empty stellar distances will hardly balk at the turning of water into wine, which was, after all, a very small miracle. We forget the greater and still continuing miracle by which water with soil and sunlight is turned into grapes. Think about what a marvel that is. Water, soil, and sunlight. Isn't that an amazing wonder? And yet, because it happens every day, we think it humdrum. There's a Pickles comic that I saved because I like it that ties in with this. Any of you read Pickles in the newspaper? Well, what's her name? His name is Earl. Opal, that's right. She's talking, it says it right in here somewhere. She's talking to Earl, and she says, oh, wow, look at that, Earl. It's a double rainbow. I can't believe it. It's so beautiful. You know, I've heard about double rainbows, but I never actually dreamed I'd see one. This is the most amazing thing that's ever happened to me. And Earl says, I only see one rainbow. Are you sure it's not your bifocals playing tricks on you? And she says, oh shoot, you're right. Never mind. I'd like to change our idea of miracles a little bit, and I start with definitions. My dictionary gives as its first definition of miracle, a surprising and welcome event that is not explainable by natural or scientific laws, and is therefore considered to be the work of a divine agency. In this category, you'll find miracles from all over the world and from different religions. For example, consider this Buddhist example from Japan. An image of Maitreya Buddha, that's the Buddha of the future, began appearing on July 4th, 1987, in the bathroom window of the home of Mr. and Mrs. Najima in Nagano City, Japan. Mr. Najima first noticed it when he was taking a bath. Maitreya Buddha standing on a lotus flower holding a small child with rainbow colors emanating from his body and 2 strings of prayer beads around his neck. I understand that people still come to visit this miraculous window and pray. Last time they checked, it was like 20 people a day. Some of them claiming to have been healed of their pains and illnesses. Or consider India, where on September 21st, 1995, statues of Hindu gods and goddesses started drinking milk from spoons and cups that had been lifted up to their lips. Traffic in Delhi and Bombay was tied up for hours as people came with jugs and saucepans of milk to see the miracle for themselves. And many believed it was a sign that a new God person had been born to save the world. Of course, I just think when you put milk up by a statue, it may absorb some of it, but that's just me. Or consider the eggplant bought in June of 1996 by Salim and Roxana Patel. They were Muslims in the city of Bolton, England. When Mrs. Patel sliced her eggplant in half, she found that the seeds formed the Arabic letters for Ya Allah, meaning God exists. And because here in America you may have, and of course here in America you may have heard of an image of Jesus in a tortilla, or the Blessed Virgin Mary appearing at a Chicago highway underpass, and Mary appeared on the bathroom floor of an auto parts store. So that's one definition of miracle, something out of the ordinary that might be hard to explain by science or natural laws. But the problem I have with this definition of miracles is that it leaves out about 95% of the surprising and welcome events in our lives. The definition of miracle I like better is the one based on the origin of the world. Miracle comes from the Latin miraculum, which in turn comes from the verb mirari, which means to look at with wonder. Miraculum meant something to be looked at and wondered at. Our word mirror actually comes from the same word, the same root. By this definition, a miracle doesn't have to be counter to science or natural law. It just has to be marveled at, which means miracles depend on you. If you wonder at something, it's a miracle. If you find it unnoteworthy, it's not. The number of miracles there are then may be proportional to the amount of wonder you have. Incidentally, those of you who understand Spanish might recognize another evolution of the word, the Latin word mirare. When little kids go, mira, mira, they're saying look, look, as in, wow, isn't this something? Mira, look, wonder, wow. Let me give you just one example to start of what I consider to be an unobtrusive miracle. And this is from Stephen Covey, who wrote 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he talks about what he called a mini paradigm shift that happened to him on a New York subway. He says people were sitting quietly, some reading newspapers, some lost in thought, some resting with their eyes closed. It was a calm, peaceful scene. And then suddenly, a man and his children entered the subway car. And the children were so loud and rambunctious that instantly the whole climate changed. The man sat down next to me and closed his eyes, apparently oblivious to the situation. The children were yelling back and forth and throwing things, even grabbing people's papers. It was very disturbing. And yet the man sitting next to me did nothing. It was difficult, says Covey, not to feel irritated. I could not believe he could be so insensitive as to let his children run wild like that and do nothing about it, taking no responsibility at all. It was easy to see that everyone else on the subway felt irritated too. So finally, With what I felt was unusual patience and restraint, I turned to him and said, "Sir, your children are really disturbing a lot of people. I wonder if you couldn't control them a little more?" And the man lifted his gaze as if to come to a consciousness of the situation for the first time and said softly, "Oh, you're right. I guess I should do something about it. You see, we just came from the hospital where their mother died about an hour ago. I don't know what to think, and I guess they don't know how to handle it either." And Stephen Covey concludes, "Can you imagine what I felt at that moment? My paradigm shifted. Suddenly I saw things differently, and because I saw differently, I thought differently, I felt differently, I behaved differently. My irritation vanished. I didn't have to worry about controlling my attitude or behavior. My heart was filled with the man's pain. Feelings of sympathy and compassion flowed freely. Your wife just died? Oh, I'm so sorry. Can you tell me about it? What can I do to help?" Everything changed in an instant. That's an unobtrusive miracle. This next one I want to mention is happened to a friend of mine who died several years ago, but was a member of a Liver Ground Church where I served for many years. His name was Jerry. A few of you may know Jerry Cross. Jerry Cross, he was once given a book as a little thank you gift for serving on a church committee. And it was a book of poems called "Sailing Alone Around the Room" by Billy Collins. Now, to be honest, Jerry was a little disappointed in this gift. He got it from our intern minister at the time, and she was thanking all the members of her advisory committee. And as he later put it, "Some people don't do windows, I don't do poetry." Well, at least I didn't. I had tried a few times, but never got past reading one or two. However, out of respect for Jody, that was the person who gave them to them, I decided I would give it one more try. That evening, I thought I'd read, one or two, but after the first poem, I was hooked, and I read it in the midnight hours. That first night, I read half of the book, and the next night, I read the rest. I still wanted more. Every bookstore I went to, I looked for Mr. Collins' poems, and I now own and have read more than once all 6 of his books. Now, at that point, Jerry wasn't interested in writing poetry. He just liked reading it, and really only that one poet. But a month or so later, on a train trip back from Washington visiting friends, he found himself scrambling for a pencil and paper and started writing poems. Since then, he said, poems just kept coming out of me. I never planned to sit down and write one. They just seemed to hit me and demand to be let out. As a result, although Jerry had enjoyed being a professional photographer for the previous 25 years, he found a new vehicle to express himself in a way that had never been fully open to him before. This is the kind of miracle I mean. It doesn't need to contravene nature or scientific laws. It just has to be a surprising and welcome event. And I suspect that many of us have had experiences like that. Maybe where we got a gift that we didn't want, and it turned out to be the gift we really needed. Divinity in a disappointment. Or something sparked an interest in us, maybe kindled a flame in us that we didn't know we had. But for an odd set of circumstances, never would have known we had. Magic in a mistake. And there's one other thing I want to mention, and that is that a lot of miracles actually come out of what seem at first to have been negative things, even ugly things. Consider the miracle of manna from the Exodus story in the Bible. Now today, manna, if you look it up, it just means an unexpected benefit. But it comes from the book of Exodus, chapter 16, where it says that the Jews, having just crossed the Red Sea and entered the Sinai desert, began to complain of hunger. Would that we had died in the land of Egypt, they complained to Moses. At least there we ate bread to the full, but you brought us out into this wilderness to kill us with hunger. So God sends down manna from heaven every morning and meat every evening. Now, we know what the meat is because Exodus says, in the evening, quails came up and covered the camp. Now, quails fly south from northern European countries every fall to winter in Africa, and then they fly back in late spring or early summer to escape the African heat. It's a long flight, and many of them land on the Sinai Peninsula, exhausted and very easy to capture. So this might explain the miracle of the meat. But what was this manna? Well, there are a couple of species of insects that infest the tamarisk trees of the area. And as they eat the leaves, they excrete a sticky liquid that then falls to the ground where it becomes sort of firm in the cool night air. And you've got to pick it up in the morning before the sun melts it, of course. But if you do, it tastes a little like sweet bread. Bedouins who live in the area today still eat it and consider it a delicacy. Incidentally, the technical name for the tamarisk tree in this area is now Tamarix manifera. Fair meaning to bear or carry, as in ferry boat, transfer, infer, refer. So manifera means bearing manna, manna-bearing tamarisk. Now this is all slightly interesting, of course, as a way of explaining the miracles of Exodus. You know, like, how did Moses turn the Nile red? Well, it turns red every year because of the silt coming down from the source. How do you explain the plagues and the frogs and the flies and the gnats? Well, they always come with the flooding of the Nile, that sort of thing. So that's one way to talk about the miracle, the manna and the miracles. But there's another way of looking at it that I find interesting. The manna, this miraculous bread from heaven, which later became a Christian symbol for the Eucharist, since John's Gospel has Jesus saying, I am the true bread that came from heaven. This manna is actually the secretion of insects, or as I heard one scholar put it, manna is basically insect poop. And the Buddhists have their own symbol of this, by the way, and that's the lotus flower. The Dhammapada says, the lotus flower will grow full of sweet perfume and delight, even on a garbage heap. Transcendence from the trash, grace in the garbage. I also have here the Egyptian word for existence. It was probably pronounced something like Keter. As you can see, it looks like a beetle. You'll find it in a lot of ancient Egyptian names and pharaohs' cartouches, and in rings and necklaces and amulets from ancient Egypt. We now call it a scarab because the scientific name for the beetle is Scarabaeus. But its everyday name is dung beetle because it lives off the dung of other animals. Now, why would that be a symbol of existence itself? Well, this beetle gathers into a ball this dung, and it lays its eggs in it. And then the beetle rolls the ball to a safe place and buries it. And later, little baby scarabs come out of the ball of dung. And because the Egyptians never could see any eggs that had been planted, it looked to them as if the baby beetles just appeared out of nothing. So for them, this scarab or keper became a symbol of existence and creation. And when Egyptians were buried, they put these little beetle images all around the body, and especially on the heart, and that was to assure continued existence in the afterlife. So deity in the dung, the holy in the hideous. Now, I would never want to say that all the hellish things that happen to us were planned for our benefit, and so we have no right to complain about them. I do like to complain. But as I look at the rough patches in my own life, I see that some of my greatest insights came out of a lot of crap. And some of the blessings I count today came out of what were yesterday my burdens. There can be magic in the mundane. There can be triumph in our tears. And there can be hope in our hurts. Not that we'll always be able to see this at the time, but in a world where miracles happen around us and are limited only by our ability to notice them, why look for them in only the bright, expected places? Why not see the ones that are so close by we end up tripping over them, and re-examine the ones that look so much like dirt we were sure there were no treasures to be found, forgetting the treasures are often buried. I even see some treasure hidden in the struggles that our country is now facing. I see that in the people who are struggling and trying to make the country better and the world better. Now the blessings there are not always easy enough, they're not always enough to make the burden seem worthwhile. And I don't think I'll ever feel that there's bags of gold under every rock. But there is probably more treasure than I've seen so far. And I'm willing to guess there's more to see if I decide to keep looking. Good luck, everyone. And now would you, as we pass the collection plate to support this fellowship, and use